Americans aren't changing homes or switching jobs. They're stuck.
Are Americans stuck?
So many Americans end up living in the same little town that they were born in their entire lives.
Anybody notice that it's very difficult to live here in the United States?
Country, the system they have was never going to work for me.
Living in America right now feels like a punishment.
Millions of Americans are doing everything they can to stay afloat, working hard, budgeting, and cutting back, but many feel like they are not holding on well in this economy. So what happens when the pressure becomes too much? Make sure you guys subscribe, comment. Let's check out the
Bro, a lot of America is stuck in the past. That's why it's hard for them to accept new experiences, you feel what I'm saying? That's why they always act like the newest thing is always the worst thing, and like the past is the best, you feel what I'm saying? They stuck in a nostalgic loop. And it's not necessarily that the things that were back then were better. It's just that they have an emotional attachment and familiarity to it, you feel what I'm saying? And people attach to familiarity, you feel what I'm saying? And people also emotionally attach themselves to nostalgia, you feel what I'm saying? And you can see this in many forms, you feel what I'm saying? I'm finna give y'all a couple of examples. For one, the music. Every time somebody making some new music and there's a new sound, somebody's like, oh, that's bad. What is this? What is this? It's not, it's not what it used to be. We used to have this, and we used to have this, and we used to have that. Yes, stuff changes over time. Every generation has done this same thing. You feel what I'm saying? My great-grandma generation didn't like my great-great-grandma generation music. My great-great-grandma generation didn't like my great-grandma generation music. My great-grandma didn't like my grandma generation music. My grandma didn't like my dad generation music. My dad, them generation don't like my music. You feel what I'm saying? Or our generation music. Not my dad, for real, because my dad, he open-minded, he cool for real. See, I ain't talking about my dad, I'm talking about his generation, though, you feel what I'm saying? People be like, oh, this young people music, and them, they're young boy, and Playboy Cardi, and whoop-de-whoop. The old generation always hates the young generation because they're stuck in the past, you feel what I'm saying? Stuck in a nostalgic loop. But the people who aren't stuck in a nostalgic loop know how to adapt, you feel what I'm saying? As you see certain artists, they adapt. Like Lil Wayne, he adapted to the new sound, you feel what I'm saying? And he actually like it. A lot of people who are open-minded and not stuck in the past actually know how to adapt and appreciate their era of things and another era of things. Like example, a lot of young people like me actually like older music. We like music from the 70s, we like music from the 80s, we like music from the 90s, we like all music. Another way that people get stuck in the past, you feel what I'm saying? All these unnecessary and toxic traditions, everybody want to keep carrying them because that's what we doing. We used to always eat chitlins on Christmas. We celebrate these holidays that are detrimental to our ancestors, and then we eat food that are detrimental to us on these holidays. And then they be like, I know that what I'm doing is hurtful to my lineage and hurtful to myself, but it don't matter because I grew up doing this and have an emotional attachment to it. I don't want to stop eating chitlins. I've been eating chitlins with my grandma every year. But you know what? It's stopping evolution, gang. That's holding the collective humanity back, bro. We got to learn how to evolve. We got to learn how to adapt with change. We got to let things change. Some people be like, oh, these new stuff these people wearing, it's all crazy. They wearing this. And they keep flipping around the thing, same thing, keep cycling. So people just hang for no reason. Because my grandma generation, they had tight clothes. And then my dad don't want wearing baggy clothes. They're like, oh, these youngers wearing these big baggy clothes. They look so thuggish and gangster and this and that and that. And then my dad generation wearing big clothes. We start wearing tight clothes. And they're like, oh, these youngers wearing these tight clothes. They look so this and that and that. And then it just keep going and going and going. Everybody stuck in the past and thinking that their era or something that from their past is better. You feel what I'm saying? It don't even have to be better. It don't even have to be better for them or the environment. It just have to have a certain perception or emotional attachment to it, gang. Like, come on. I'm just saying, at some point, we got to get out the past, gang. We got to learn how to adapt. We got to learn how to appreciate change. You feel what I'm saying? We got to learn how to say, hey, what I had was new. What I had was good, and this new stuff is good. You feel what I'm saying? I can appreciate both. I can appreciate what I had and what this has become. You feel what I'm saying? Let me give you one more example. When artists change what they doing, like they have a certain sound and they change sounds, they be like, oh, they fell off or they don't sound good no more, that and that. They stuck in the past, gang. So with that being said, let's evolve. I love y'all.
To the rest of the world, you need to understand that 75 million of us didn't vote for this shit. The other people who did are what we call dumbasses who only care about themselves. They're like hypnotized by this man. I don't know why. They claim they love children but voted for the man in the Epstein files. How about that? Is that enough evidence for you to know they're dumbasses? Now we know what they mean when they say they love children, though. Thank you for clarifying that, honestly, because I was very confused. I was like, what? So please don't generalize us. Please don't ever associate me with those bitches. Please, I'm begging.
That 40% of Americans don't have $500 in their savings. So I want you to remember that before you start arguing with a random, because some people have nothing to lose right now.
Living in America right now feels like a punishment. You wake up already behind, you go to work just to stay broke, and you watch the cost of everything rise while your paycheck doesn't move an inch. Groceries are a luxury. Rent is robbery. Healthcare is a joke. And somehow we're the ones blamed for not budgeting better. People are working 2-3 jobs and still choosing between food or gas. Families are crammed into apartments because buying a house became a fantasy. You can't afford to get sick. You can't afford to rest. You can't afford to exist. But they keep telling us the economy's strong. Strong for who? Because it sure as hell isn't the people doing the work. We're out here treading water while billionaires build rockets, politicians trade stocks, and corporations raise prices just because they can. We were promised opportunity. We got survival. And what makes this worse is watching people blame themselves. Like somehow you failed because you can't afford a 1-bedroom anymore. Like you didn't do enough when the truth is the math just stopped adding up years ago. They told us to work harder, but never told us they'd change the finish line. This isn't a country full of lazy people. It's a country full of exhausted ones. Simple as that.
Americans aren't changing homes or switching jobs. They're stuck, and that has economic consequences for everyone. My colleague Rachel and I looked into this, and what we found is that American mobility, or the rate at which people switch jobs and move to new homes, is now at the lowest rate it's ever been. A big part of that is the labor market. There's fewer entry-level jobs now for people who are out of college or out of school, and the people who do have jobs are often holding on to them, meaning they're never freed up. So why does this matter? Geographic and economic mobility go hand in hand. People are stuck in houses that are too big or too small, and often young people can't even afford to buy their first home to begin with. When people can't or won't move to the cities with the good jobs, that often means they earn less. And when companies can't actually find people to fill their open positions because people don't want to move from other cities and other states, that means they make less money and they're less productive. For generations, Americans have chased opportunity by moving across the country in search of better homes and better jobs. And US companies were often quicker to hire and to fire than employers in other parts of the world. Now the country's trademark dynamism may be at risk.
For me, I realized that like this country, the system they have was never going to work for me. When I was already working 5 jobs, still couldn't fucking pay my bills, still couldn't afford food, still couldn't afford gas. I literally had to fucking steal groceries at the grocery store just to eat. Like when it got that fucking bad, and I'm like, I'm literally working non-fucking stop. Like no days off. I work 7 days a week, 5 fucking jobs. Like when I was not working my 3 scheduled jobs, I was working my 2 to 3 side hustles on the side, and I still was not making ends meet. Like the shit is crazy to me. I don't know how people live like this. I don't know how people just be okay living like this. I don't know how y'all are like just, I don't know. Everybody's situation different, I guess. But like when I reached that point and I was like, I still have to fucking steal food just to eat, and I'm working 5 jobs, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. Like I just was like, what's the point? Like what the fuck am I doing? Like what is the purpose here? Where are we getting to here? Because it's like when you're doing that and you're always behind, you're never gonna get ahead. What the fuck? You're never gonna get ahead. You're never gonna ever have money to save towards a goal, towards anything, towards a vacation, towards a car, towards escape. Like you're never gonna have any money to save. So it's just like, what's the point? And it's like so many little minuscule problems that add up. Like the fact that they just don't pay us enough here. They don't pay us enough. Everything is just high inflated. It's way too expensive. Food, fucking housing, grocery, everything is just expensive. Gas, like. Then there's no health benefits. People can't even afford to fucking be sick. Y'all are overworking us and we can't even afford to be fucking sick from being overworked. People can't afford health insurance. People can't afford education to try to get a better job. It's just like a trap. Like literally living in America is jail. Literally. I don't care what nobody say. This shit is a jail. Like you think you're free, but you're not really free.
Are Americans stuck? This is an argument made by the Wall Street Journal, which talks about how nobody's buying homes, nobody's switching jobs, and America's mobility is stalling. For generations, Americans chased opportunities from city to city and state to state, and U.S. companies often were quick fire than employers in other parts of the world. But that defining mobility has stalled, leaving many people in homes that are too small, in jobs that they don't love, or in their parents' basements looking for work. Another layer to this is that you have homeowners that are stuck in golden handcuffs with these interest rates in the 2s and 3s, and they're unable to sell. So people who bought homes when mortgage rates were very low or stable and they have white-collar jobs are clinging on to those jobs. So they're not moving, they're not selling their house. It's causing the whole economy to be in this situation where a lot of things are on the standstill. This immobility has serious economic consequences, and economists are actually very worried. The market being frozen means growing families can't upgrade, empty nesters can't downsize, and first-time home buyers are all but locked out. When people can't move for a job offer or to a city with better job opportunities, they just end up earning less money. And when companies can't hire people who currently live in a different state, corporate productivity and profits can suffer. And then you have young graduates who are entry-level roles at the present moment. And if you take a look at the data that was published 2 weeks ago, 60% of all college graduates from last year still have not landed a role. The reality is that economic and geographic mobility often go hand in hand, and declining mobility is a big deal in so many dimensions. Quote directly by Chang Tai-hsie, an economics major at the University of Chicago. His research has previously found that expensive housing dissuaded so many workers from moving for better jobs that it weighed on U.S. gross domestic product. And he also believes that that link seen between 1964 to 2009 likely still holds true.
Not enough people move around in America. There's so many Americans who die within like a couple hundred miles of where they're born. It's really sad. Like, America is a huge country with all kinds of culture and all kinds of interesting things in it. And yet so many Americans end up living in the same little town that they were born in their entire lives. Why? Are you guys just cowards? You don't want to check out the rest of the country? I mean, one of the biggest reasons we have such a white supremacy problem in this country is a bunch of white people who grew up in a little tiny white town and never left. So they never met anybody who didn't share their exact views and their exact ideology. One of the first things that will break is if you move to a different place and experience a different culture and meet some people who don't look and think exactly like you. That's how you build empathy. But all these white people who grew up in these little white towns with like less than 10,000 people in them and then never left and have never encountered an idea outside of their Christian white values is the reason we have so many bigots and just hatred in this country. You should move. Check out the rest of the country.
Less than half the population of the United States is legally allowed to leave the United States. And that is true because only half of the population of the United States has a valid passport. And why are Americans so scared of traveling internationally? I don't think it really is that they are scared, but the United States has a lot of really big tourist destinations. Traveling internationally can be very expensive. Honestly, a lot of these maps that show a lot of places that have passports, they have a lot of countries around them. So it's really not surprising. I mean, Australia is very similar to the United States. They're a little further away from everybody else, just like they have a lot of things there, a lot of variety. Somewhere like Spain or France or Germany, they're all right beside each other. To get that variety, they've got to travel from country to country. So it's very common for everybody to just have a passport to go back and forth. Places like Russia is so big that they may not even need it. Maybe income, I have no idea why they don't have as many. Maybe they don't issue as many, and maybe it's just not a thing that people want to travel internationally. But you see a lot of these red areas, people don't travel internationally. There's a lot of people in India, and I guess just with how much money people make, a lot of people are not able to travel internationally. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments.
What's up, America? Has anybody noticed that it's very difficult to live here in the United States? And a lot of people seem to be just crashing out and not being able to afford life in America. Has anybody noticed how difficult it's getting to live here? Has anybody noticed how high the prices for food still are? How impossible it is to buy a house now? How difficult it is to afford a new car with the insurance? Same with health insurance. Has anybody noticed that childcare is so expensive that you practically have to stop working to take care of the kid, but if you don't have a dual income, you can't afford life? Has anybody noticed it's nearly impossible to afford a vacation now? And has anybody noticed that 70% of America is living paycheck to paycheck, with approximately 1/3 of America in such abject poverty they can't afford even an emergency bill? 2/3 to 3/4 of Americans say that they're basically living in some form of poverty, unable to pay their bills. You know that 1/3 of Americans simply have stopped paying one or more bills because they can't afford it. They've just checked out and said, fuck you, you're not getting any money. Did you know that approximately 18% of people are defaulted on their credit cards currently? Same with student loans. People are starting to crash out on student loan payments because they can't afford it. They're going into default. Whatever's happening in America right now currently is not it. Corporations are dictating every single thing politically here in the United States. We don't have a choice. Corporations are your politicians now, and they will not be satisfied until 99% of the country has absolutely no money and every dime is consolidated in the top 3,000 wage earners, much like India. So it's getting pretty hairy out there from what I can tell, and prices keep inching up more and more every single day. Spoiler alert, it will never get better here on prices. I actually think it's so bad, I would start looking to live in another cheaper nation if possible. And I'm frankly thinking about going that road myself. Did you know in the year 2001, if you made $50,000 a year, that's the modern equivalent of making $120,000 now. So since 2001, it is more than double to live here. That is a fucked up nation. Almost no place in the world has subjugated their people to that financial hardship. But here in America, it's just normal. But I'm telling you, that's not normal. That's fucked up, and that is unsustainable. This country is not sustainable, except for the highest billionaire fuckfaces.
Why do so many of us in America look broke down by the time we turn age 50? I'll tell you why. We've been worked into the dirt. And see, every time I go out, I notice this. Our bodies are tired. People limping, backs hurt, knees shot, and feet straight busted. It's like people are walking billboards for what overworking does to the human body. And let's be honest here, it's not genetics, y'all. This is capitalism. See, in America, you literally work until your body falls apart. You ignore pain, you push through injury. You skip checkups because you don't have the time and you don't have the money. And then by the time you're older, your body cashes the check that your job wrote years ago, but then it bounces. Now, compare that to older people in other countries. You'll see 70-year-olds still walking to the store, riding bikes. Meanwhile, here, we got 45-year-olds moving like they're 90. And why? Because in America, see, your age is not just an indication of how long you've actually lived. It also tells how hard you've been worked. And you know the wildest part of it all? After all of that work, you don't have nothing to show for it. All the money you made is already spoken for. Bills, debt, medical costs, food, rent, mortgage, that money gone. So you gave your body and you gave your youth, and you don't even get any peace or security in return. So when you hear somebody ask, why do Americans look so beat down? It's not just age, y'all. It's a system that grinds you up, spits you out, and then blames you for not taking better care of yourself.
I don't know, y'all. I'm not falling for the storyline that's been going on for years about Americans being broke. Cause I'm seeing new cars, new bags, new vacations, new new everything. Everything new. Yet they saying we in a whole recession. Are Americans really struggling that bad? Like, for real, for real?
Let's talk about the loneliness epidemic, how it is making all of us sicker, and how the solution is actually economic. And I would recommend checking out this Atlantic article by Derek Thompson. And he basically talks about how the amount of socializing has gone down, how young people have fewer friends, etc. And he basically uses this framework that says that humans are wired for social connection, but now live in engineered isolation. And so we have these social related diseases because of that. And I think one of the big drivers of this isolation is Screens, yes, digital stuff, yes. But I think it's also that we have systemically destroyed the infrastructure that created casual social connection. And if you've been on my page before, you've probably seen me talk about this. I talk a lot about the loss of third places and affordable places to meet people or hang out, and how, one, that's actually really expensive for us because loneliness is expensive, but two, it has eroded our overall society. Like, churches and community organizations have declined and gone away. Things like sports have become very pay to play and expensive. Third places have disappeared or become unaffordable. Housing has become more spread out, so people live further away from each other. And on top of this, there's been the rise of workism, which Derek also talks about, and how work has kind of replaced our sense of purpose and our third place. So we're all just overworked, exhausted, and it costs a lot of money to maintain social connection because of how expensive everything's gotten. So we feel more and more isolated. And when we feel like we cannot afford to participate outside in the community, we'll just go onto our screens. And again, all of this has a very clear financial dimension. Like, hanging out costs a lot more money. Things like going to a bar, seeing a movie, attending an event, it requires disposable income that people increasingly do not have. Social infrastructure used to be a lot more free and cheap. Now it's either expensive or gone. And on top of this, like I was saying before, if everyone is working multiple jobs or gig work, coordinating schedules is harder. You're in a more precarious financial situation, so you might not feel like you have disposable income to spend. And I do agree with this thesis where it basically says almost every social crisis in the US could be helped if people spend more time together and less on their phones. But we also need to acknowledge that we have built an economy that has made hanging out a lot more expensive and almost a luxury that people cannot afford. So if we want to address this wider issue, we also need to address the economic situation that has got us here in the first place.